please welcome to the stage Neil Kraft.
So now for a commercial interruption. I practiced this presentation with my wife, Scott, and her response was, "Don't you have writers at work who can make it funny?" 2.4 billion views of this ad, totally viral. I spent the day in a big floppy hat, looking awful, and had to go to the bathroom for 12 hours. Last year, we ran Ashley Graham in an ad in Sports Illustrated. They laughed at us. This year, she's on the cover. So we countered with a 56-year-old. Next year, it's going to be a tranny or something. I already am nervous. But it was really cool to help start a movement, and the reaction has been really gratifying. #SwimSexy. So how did this all happen? I was a serious artist in the 70s. In high school, I spent all my free time wandering around New York City with a camera, taking pictures of old people and tugboats. I continued this at college where I studied photography. However, nothing I can tell you will explain my Jufro or the mustache. This was the New York City Auto Show in the 70s. My parents wanted me to do anything but be an artist. They yelled, they screamed. My grandmother called crying. She did that a lot. But I loved being an artist and never once even remotely thought about how I was going to support myself or if I should get rid of the mustache. Mom. Dead, thank God. By the way, don't try to dump ashes in the Atlantic on a windy day. There's a lot of blowback. So Scott and I graduated and we moved in with her. And we had to live in her pitch black Upper East Side apartment where she didn't want to pay the Con Ed bill. And we're always black and blue. After a couple of shitty first jobs, sorry kids, like spray painting a guy's film cases, I got my first real job as a creative director at Barney's. We ran a clothing ad with no clothing. There was an actual Barney who used to call me from Florida, yell, and say, "You're putting us out of business. Talk about the free parking." Well, this ad went over really well in 1991. We'd still be in trouble today if we ran this now. We got quite a bit of hate mail, as you can imagine, but I did have my first cappuccino living in San Francisco, and I was too dumb to start a coffee chain back then. So then Calvin called, and he was on the phone, and at first I thought, it's not him, it was some friend playing a joke. Well, long story short, you can't say no to Calvin, so we picked up our little family and moved back to New York. This, by the way, is Kate Moss. I hear she became really, really big.
Shouts goes out to my man Calvin Klein, good looking out for the drawers. Not saying I would do another Fruit of the Loom commercial or nothing like that, because they don't make the hype shorts. These are the 90s, man. They just fit good and they hold me snug. No, the best protection against AIDS is to keep the Calvins on. Now that could definitely come between me and my Calvins.
Well, here's how we come to the Hamptons. How a city kid took out all his artistic frustrations, becoming a completely compulsive gardener. Having a house was new for me, and I'd call Scott at least every week to ask what had died and what was broken. We decided to leave the city and my job at Calvin, and I'd work at home. Liz Taylor, she showed up 5 hours late for the shoot. We were going out of our minds. Then, before she'd even get on set, we had to present a gift to her, which she didn't like. I could do a whole PechaKucha on her. If you want, I'll do a private one afterwards. Then Ralph called. He's another guy you can't say no to. So I found myself living at the Soho Grand 3 nights a week and spending Fridays in the Hamptons. This little Upper East Side Jewish boy was not a perfect match for Ralph, despite the fact that he's from the Bronx. But Calvin and Ralph taught me tons, and I'm forever grateful. So what next? The only other person in fashion I could have worked for at the time was Donna Karan. She didn't want me. So I started an agency with 2 thieving partners, and within a couple of years I founded Kraftworks and got rid of the Gonifs. So instead of doing the same thing and moving back to the city, we stayed. I've been commuting to the Hamptons for 22 years. The first time I was served this in a restaurant, I gotta say, I was like choked up. I turned to the guy next to me at the sushi bar and said, look, I designed that. He thought I was nuts. They actually came to us to do an ad campaign, and then what they really needed was a new bottle. I almost talked myself out of a job. I know, I have this incredible life. I live in the Hamptons. I get to travel the world and meet celebrities. It's not all it's cracked up to be. The first thing you have to remember is celebrities always, always have people who whisper things to you like, Jennifer's not happy. And she's not happy. She's sitting there doing nothing. She didn't say anything to me. Taylor Swift is amazing, totally magnetic. But at these sort of shoots, I become like a UN negotiator, like with a headphone and everything, you know? You're just running between people. Give me a model any day, even Naomi Campbell, and I'm much more relaxed on set. A lot of you know what a relaxed guy I am. One of the great celebrity campaigns we did was this campaign for Aldo. Not only did we get to work with John Mayer, Charlize Theron, LL Cool J, Adrian Brody, Frodo, you know, the guy from Lord of the Rings, and many, many more, we're also able to raise $5 million for charity. Sometimes doing a good thing and selling stuff comes together. Boobs and bras, as Andrea said. I'm the king of them. This is the part that I never would have believed in high school. I get lots of comments about what a great time I must be having, but honestly, it's work. I'm like a doctor. I use my art school training every day, and so don't put too much pressure on your kids to go to law school. They'll be fine. So that brings us to today. The world of advertising has made a dramatic shift over the last 6 years. Still, always try to challenge the expected norm, and I think that's what gets our work noticed. Here's a TV commercial we just did with Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction, who is also a really long story.
If it ain't broken, break it. 11 generations of tequila mastery went into throwing out the rule book and making something better. Dobell. Masters. Makers. Rule breakers.
Thanks very much. I've enjoyed getting a chance to give you my life story.